These days, the threat of cyber attacks and malicious software, it's nearly universal, but according to a recent National Consumer Reports survey, 62% of U.S. online consumers, they've done nothing to protect their privacy on the internet. And joining us to share more from this survey and what customers should do to protect themselves and their data is Glenn Doreen, electronics editor for Consumer Reports. Glenn, let's start with smartphones. I want to know, how are we at risk and what can we do to protect ourselves?
Well, smartphones present a few problems. The first one that the people are probably most afraid of, and maybe not, they shouldn't be as afraid of it as as some of the other routes, but people are worried about malware on their smartphones. That seems to be largely a problem with Android phones, largely because Android phones, it's easier to what they call sideload apps onto them. In other words, apps that are not necessarily through the official stores. That's where a lot of this malware is popping up, and it can definitely, if you get that on your phone, it can take over your phone, allow hackers to get into the deepest recesses of it. But our advice is basically stick to the official stores, Apple's App Store and Google's Play Store. However, even if you are very secure with your smartphone, you're still subject to the same type of phishing attacks that any device that gets email can subject you to. So if you get an email looking like it's coming from a legitimate company, from UPS, even your own HR department, asking for personal information, or even trying to guide you to go click on a web page, we suggest don't do it, don't answer it.
Now, I think a lot of people also make mistakes when it comes to social media. I know sites like Facebook have dozens and dozens of privacy settings, and people often don't take the time to set them. So what do people need to know when it comes to social media and also cloud-based services?
Well, what's interesting about social media is that oftentimes you're volunteering information that can help, that can sort of subject you to two different problems. One is you say, hey, I can't wait to go on my great new vacation, and then suddenly you're letting the world know that you're not at home for the next week and a half, so that's a problem. And also you could have some things that you never even considered before, like you might be friends with your mother who goes by her maiden name. There's suddenly your mother's maiden name. That can be used to reset passwords on other accounts and suddenly give access to people that are trying to get into them. So you just have to sort of be aware of what you're sharing and who you're sharing it with. You should make your default settings to only your friends if possible. And cloud services have their own problems. People are storing their data, more and more their important information in the cloud, and these services are really only as secure as the providers make them. So we've already seen in the past couple of years, Dropbox and Evernote have been subject to some breaches. So you want to sort of pay attention to that, and if you find that there's a breach, change your password in a hurry.
Now, Glenn, lastly, it's travel season, it's summertime, kids are thinking about going back to school soon. How can consumers protect themselves when they're on the go, or maybe when they get into college or their new environments?
Well, one very important thing to think of when you're on the road is that you're going to be hooking, especially if you bring your devices, you're going to be hooking into a lot of sort of open networks that you're really not sure what the security of them is. And hopefully you've locked down your router at home. But if you go to a coffee shop or a hotel or something like that where the Wi-Fi is open, don't log on to things like your banking accounts, even your social networks, because you can get something called session hijacking, where somebody else on the network actually can watch everything you do. If you do need to go and log into those types of services, we suggest looking into using your smartphone as a cellular hotspot. The cellular networks are much more secure.
Glenn, these are great tips. It's funny, a lot of people, they put so much money into securing their home or to securing their car, but no one thinks about this precious information that we sometimes take for granted. So thanks for these tips. And if you want even more information, you can head to our website, mymassappeal.com, a little bit later today.